Hello and welcome to the Precise Cricket podcast with me, your host, Matt Matron. This is episode 2 of series 1, and firstly a massive thank you to everyone that subscribed, liked, followed our YouTube page, Spotify and Apple Podcasts yesterday on our first release, and thank you to everyone that has watched that first episode so far. Now, the reason why I wanted to do a podcast so quickly after the first episode is because last night I was actually watching the quarter-final between Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire. Now, Nottinghamshire won, for those of you who may not have followed it, but Leicestershire should have won that game. And the reason why I wanted to do this podcast today was because there's a number of things I've noticed on social media today that people are sort of mentioning, and it comes down to the run out or the misfield in the last over that the fielder missed. That it was a basic bit of fielding, but under pressure he couldn't perform his skill to execute it. And I just wanted to touch on probably what was going through his mind, why as a coach, if I was coach of that team, why I would be happy of him missing the ball. Yes, he missed the ball, but why I'm happy that he missed the ball in a correct manner. So for those of you who haven't seen the game, and for those of you who have, Leicester lost the game, and it was their game for the taking. They should have won. They should have absolutely annihilated Notts. Notts needed, I think, 17 off 9 balls. And Leicester in the box seat. Samit Patel played beautifully at the end and got them close. And off the last the last ball, they needed 3 off the last ball. 2 to tie, which means they would have gone through to the next round because they got a higher power play score than Leicester. So what happened was the bowler Griffiths bowled the ball to Iman, their left arm spinner overseas player, and he hit it to deep mid wicket. Klein, I believe it was, the opening left arm seamer, ran and attacked the ball. He got in a beautiful position but missed the ball, and the ball then went for 2. Now, Notts got back for 2, and they qualified for the semi-finals tomorrow. Now, if I was coach of that team and Leicester, yes, emotionally at the time, I would be absolutely gutted. Like, you were that close to a final. We've got a finals day, and a basic bit of fielding essentially cost you in the most crucial moment. But as a coach, looking back, why would I be pleased that, yes, he missed the ball, but it's the manner about the way he missed it? So for me, he could have sat back on the boundary and let them run 2 and been safe. But what he wanted to do, he wanted to attack the ball and make a difference to try and get a run out. Unfortunately, in that moment, his skill set wasn't quite up to speed for whatever reason, and he missed the ball. I think they came back for 2 and they tied the game and Notts went through. So I would be pleased as coach because he took the positive option. Now, the positive option is always going to help you out 95% of the time. But unfortunately, that 5% can make a difference. And unfortunately, last night, in the heat of the moment, when it mattered, when all the cameras are watching and all the people on social media and around the world are watching the game, they missed the ball. And that's what's going to get talked about. So, yes, it's very unfortunate, but I'd be pleased if he took the positive option, and also pleased with a young Leicestershire side who had no real superstars. They kind of had everyone playing. I think everyone's under 30, or the oldest player's 30, so everyone's incredibly young. And their togetherness and this experience is going to, I believe, make them a stronger team moving forward under Paul Nixon. But dealing with the pressure, how do you deal with the pressure in those moments? Now, this is really, really tough. And I truly believe you don't know what you're made of until you get put into those situations. So you don't know whether you're going to either run away from it, so flight, or you're going to stand up, puff your chest out and crack on, so the fight aspect. So fight or flight. He missed the ball last night on the boundary, but he had that fighter's mentality. He attacked the ball, he went at it. He tried to attack it and make a difference. If he had that flight mindset, he would have sat back, let them run 2 and been safe. But you don't know what you're like until you get into those moments. And how do you train them? It's really important that to train those moments, so fielding, let's use fielding as an example last night. How do you do it? How do you work on those pressure moments that can influence and change games? Now, I'm more doing this for a practice purpose because it is quite hard to replicate the pressure you feel when you're out there. And every cricketer would have been through it. It doesn't matter if you've played international cricket, professional, club cricket, Sunday cricket. At some moments of the game, you will feel under pressure to perform and to get your team to that next small milestone, which is going to make a difference in the game. So going back to how do we train it? Well, let's say fielding, for instance. At the end of training, you can put yourself under pressure. You could have 3 people or 2 people, one person running a 2 and someone hitting a ball out from the batter's end, and that person's fielding it long and they've got to run in, pick the ball up and try and run that batter's out. You can get them fatigued under pressure, and you can do this 2 or 3 times, and it could be the best of 3, and whoever wins buys that other person a drink in the bar or buys them dinner or whatever it may be, and that's how you can create the competition and that slight pressure to try and execute your skill in that moment. Again, let's use it for a batting example. You're batting in the last over, you need 10 to win. Now you could do a scenario in the nets, you need 10 to win off 6 balls, you set a field, and there's a consequence on the end. So these consequences at the end put you under pressure in a non-pressurised moment. And it's really, really important that to get better in these key moments, which is what makes great players stand out, because great players can continuously perform under pressure in key moments time and time again. And that's why they're the greatest or world-class players. But to get to those stages, they have to do the basics better than everyone else. So not only do you have to nail the basics, but when you're so good at nailing the basics consistently, you then have to put yourself under pressure to take your game to that next level. Now, as I've said earlier, you can only get to that, you only find out what you're doing in that point when you're put in that scenario. But you have to put yourself under enough stress to try and be able to be better in that pressurised position. Now, over time, you're going to get used to these pressurised situations, and experience will usually get you through them. But to start with, what you want to try and do is you want to have 2 types of practice. You want to have a normal net session, let's say, where you're just grooving against bowlers, feeling good, and then you want to have a competition net session where there's a consequence on it. So it may be you're batting for 5 overs, and if you're out, you're out, you leave the net. Or it may be that you are set a run chase where you need 20 runs off 15 balls, and if you don't win it, you have to do 50 press-ups at the end, or something like that. But it's important you have those 2 aspects of, you know, a feeling good practice in the net and also putting yourself under pressure. And that's what really develops and improves you as players quickly. Now, if we go back to last night, it was a high pressurised situation. Yes, there's no crowds in because of COVID, but at the same time, it's a finals day and it comes round quickly. That finals day is tomorrow, so it comes round very, very quickly. And unfortunately, last night, his skill didn't quite allow it in that pressurised moment. But the fact that he was prepared to put himself in a position to try and change a game meant that he has the right mental attitude, in my opinion, to bounce back from it and come strong. And you can see this from last night. You know, you look at the players that did well under pressure. Samit Patel at the end having a match-winning score, 28 off 12, 14 balls maybe. Time and time again, he finishes games off. And he's been put in those situations, these high pressurised situations, time and time again. And that's what's allowed him to become the player he is. And that's allowed him to, you know, play for England, play all around the world playing 2020 cricket, because he can change games in these moments. Would he have started like that? No. He would have failed time and time again in those positions, but they would have backed him. He would have gone away and practiced to make himself a great player in those positions and done consequence practice. Then once he wins 1 or 2 games, he'll get more confidence, more experience. And before you know it, he's turned himself into a very good player at finishing those games. And this can be said for death bowlers, opening bowlers. Put yourself in those positions, put yourself under pressure to become and try to become a good player under pressure. Now this takes time and experience to do so, but once you understand that you can do it, those pressurised situations that you had initially become less and less and less, and at one point in your career needing 10 off 6 balls would be the most pressurised thing ever. If you've won the game 4 or 5 times before, the next season you do it, it's not going to be the most pressurised situation because you know your chances of doing it maybe 80-90%. Then all of a sudden you need 14 off the last over. That's your new pressure zone. So you see how the zones fluctuate and change as you get better with experience. But I just wanted to touch on that because social media is such a killer these days with things like this, because all I was looking at today was this poor chap who missed the ball. Yes, he missed the ball. It's cricket. It's going to go round on social media. It's done the rounds already, and it hasn't even been 24 hours later. But just remember that he wanted to make a difference because he attacked the ball and he wanted to try and win the game in that moment for his team. It didn't quite happen. That's life. It moves on, and sport moves on very quickly. But to get better in those positions, you have to fail, but also you have to understand what works for you in those positions, and you'll only know once you're in those positions to change. So I think it's important that people understand when they're in a pressurised situation, and they might not understand straight away, but looking back over time and reflecting, they'll know those pressurised situations they've been on, and they've seen whether they've had the fight to stick it out or they've almost done the flight and run away. But whether you've stuck your chest out and had a go, or you've sort of taken the back seat, it doesn't matter, because putting yourself in those situations will make you a better player anyway moving forward. So I just wanted to touch on this very, very quickly today before the finals tomorrow, because I thought it was quite a quick and easy topic to try and talk about. So yeah, guys, thank you very much for listening, and I'll check in with you all soon.